everyone, Kimberly Sulfridge here with the Kids Money Project. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I am here with Sarah Phillips of the Four Pocket Money or Allowance System. I always forget allowance for some reason. And that's what we're here talking about. So kind of crazy, but with the Four Pocket Allowance System. Hey, Sarah, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Kim. How are you?
I'm doing great. So thank you for joining us this morning. I wanted to have a conversation today about kind of transitioning into those teen years because that can be kind of an interesting time for a lot of reasons. And money is just one of those because obviously as they're getting older, they're probably starting to ask for more money. They certainly have more expenses around them and things like that. So it can be kind of an interesting time. They're becoming more independent and stuff. So, what is a great way or how do we kind of reflect that in their allowance? How does it change as they're moving into those years?
Wow. Well, thanks so much for having me here, Kim. This is such an important topic, I think. So, for those who don't know me, we have a beautiful blended family of three boys, but we're now in the around the 1916 and 12, almost 13 years. So when I started doing this, we were dealing with kids and learning all about kids. And then we noticed as we're getting into the teen years, it involved a bit of a rethink as we started going into this. So teens, I think, as we all know, when we get into those years, they're trying to find their own independence. They're on the in that process of transitioning to adulthood. So absolutely, we always talk about the importance of starting when kids are younger because I'm going to put this diplomatically, they're more likely to listen to you before the teen years, but that doesn't mean we stop in the teen years. It means we need to transition how we talk to our kids about money and how we not just talk to them about money, but how we provide a framework for them about continuing their money education. So a few things that we want to start thinking about as kids start to be more independent with their money. First is where they keep their money. So younger kids, we talk about cash. They want to touch it, count it, see it, feel it. As we're getting into the older years, they're going to start being more and more like adults. They're probably going to start transitioning a little more to a bank account, towards having a bank card. We also want to be ready for those apps. Those are coming. I'm not there yet myself, but I know our oldest certainly has dived in and uses the app. So we want to make sure that we're ready for that. So going into that virtual space, they understand the concept of money. They understand that it can be finite. So we want to start building up some of those skills of managing it a little more virtually. Something else we did, so we still do provide our kids with some money. And again, we see this as money we would be using to pay for other things. And we've directed it and given them some autonomy over how it's spent. But we shifted from doing something, we started biweekly to monthly. And as they got older, we really shifted to quarterly because we're building up the skill of having some money, planning ahead, thinking ahead, controlling impulses. When you get a lump sum, that's your quarterly amount of money, there can be a temptation to go out and spend it right away. So we wanted to start having our kids think a little more about managing money over a period of time. So we started to shift that way. And we also wanted to make them more responsible for certain expenses. So while originally when we gave our kids an allowance, it was spending money. It was the money we would have maybe bought something at the museum gift shop, or we would have here or there bought them a new book, and we transitioned that money to them. Now we're going to look at some of the other things we spend on our kids, like clothing, and start giving them the money and having them manage it and create the budget for that and figure out that, okay, we have the brand name Temptation. So, okay, if you're going to spend more on one thing, on a certain shirt or a certain pair of shoes, it means you have less money for something else. So we're starting to transition more money to them and making them responsible for certain things. A little one we did was a bus pass. One of our kids wanted a bus pass, and we said, okay, what if we transition some of the money to you? And you can decide if you want to walk to school or if you want the bus pass, and keeping that money and making them start making some of those decisions and weighing some of the options. So we really want to foster that independence. And there's a lot of ways we can do that with money like that.
Well, I love that, especially with the bus pass and letting them. Out of curiosity, did they get the bus pass or did they walk?
They decided to walk for a while, and then eventually the temptation of the bus pass, and as their circle grew bigger. So it started out as a bus pass to go to school, and I'll walk to school. But then as you want to start going and seeing friends, and there was a little more traveling. The other exciting one that comes up, and I warn parents about this because we were caught a little bit off guard, is the Uber aspect, in that we had our oldest sleep in one day, and all of a sudden he got up, and I noticed he was running late for school, and all of a sudden there's a car in our driveway. He has called himself an Uber. I didn't, like, he doesn't have a credit card. How did he link? But he figured out how to link all of this up. He had his own money. I was able to pay to get Ubered to school when he was running late. So it's coming. I warn other parents out there, it's going to take you by surprise. Kids are way more plugged into things, I think, definitely than I ever was when I was their age. So
that's so great. Yeah, that is not one I would have actually thought. I mean, when you said Uber, my natural thought was, oh yeah, but I didn't think it would be for going to school. I thought it was maybe for going out that night or something, but oh, that is crazy. So yeah, no, great warning for mom and dad. So yeah, be prepared for that one. But obviously some great points on that, and teaching them, I love that extended period of time. That's one of my favorites that you've talked about, because that's not one I actually kind of naturally came to, because we've got them where you're kind of on a set schedule and doing this, and they're kind of managing that money. But I love, as they're getting older, that you kind of stretch out that period of time, because those things that they want are going to be more expensive for one. And that is a great way for them to really kind of, chances are they're going to mess up once or twice. They're going to overspend, where, if you're doing it on a quarterly basis, and so they've got that 3 months, something big comes up in there, and they're like, I have this money. And then all of a sudden, come month 2.5, 3, and they're like, and I have like $20 and how am I going to get through this month? But I'd rather them learn that lesson like that than when they're 20, 25, and the dollar amounts are just so much bigger, and they have credit cards where they're, they don't stop the spending. They just start spending and getting into debt. So I love that.
I prefer they made the mistake with the money, they're spending money as a teen, than to make the mistake with their salary. That's their rent. Like, if you're going to make the mistake, make it when the stakes are low.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And that's one thing, as parents, we want to step in and help them and stuff. But I think that's something that, you have to remember, let them make those mistakes. Let them learn now. It's hard to watch, especially when you're standing back and you're watching them about to make a mistake, and it can be hard. And I think it's probably not bad to, are you sure you want to do this? Especially if it's before and you can see it about to happen, you can kind of, are you really sure you want to do this? But if they're insistent on it, let them do it. And
I would add to that, Kim, that for those parents out there, because I know not everyone in your audience necessarily has teens yet, so some people may be watching this for later, but for those who still have younger kids, that same lesson comes out in other ways. So one thing that we've done is, pre-COVID, whenever we've gone on a trip, we give our kids a heads up ahead of time. They save their own spending money, and they get to control how it's spent. So if on day one, and we've had the fortune of doing Disney on day one, if you blow all that money in the first store, you still have another 3, 4, 5, however many days left, and you're going to be seeing a lot of cool things. And I've had to sit there as a parent, as painful as it was, see them spend the money on day one and get to day 3 and want something and say, oh, if I'd known this was here, I wouldn't have spent the money on day 1, and not stepping in. And it's hard. It's that same feeling you were talking about, just on a smaller level and on a shorter term level. So they start learning that lesson a bit as a kid when you do things like spending money. And then as teens, we're just stretching it out. We're just saying, you're not budgeting your money over a 4-day trip now. You're budgeting your money over a 3-month period. So definitely everything we're talking about with teens, there's that link to kids. It's a continuation of that same process.
Exactly. Well, it's just different kind of a volume at that point. And so, yeah, I love that you threw that in on the Disney, because that's true. I've seen a lot of people do that. And that day one can be like, oh my gosh, I see it happening already. And yeah, it's hard. But so what do you do as a parent when your kids start coming to you and they're getting older and they start asking for more money? Because we know that happens.
We do know that happens. So a few things to think about, because our immediate reaction can often be, no, you have your own money. One recommendation that I have, and I picked this up from, I believe it was from Gail Baz-Oxlade. I don't know if you've ever followed her. She's a great money guru. And she says, have your kids make a business case. So don't say no, say, persuade me. And this is such a great skill for kids as they get older, as they get into jobs, into other things. Say, okay, you think you need more money, put together a little presentation, put together something, and come back to me. And let's have some fun with it, and explain to me why you think you need more money. So encourage them to look at their current expenses. Where are they currently spending money? What new expenses do they have? But also, what money do they have, and how are they spending the money that they're starting to make as they're getting into new jobs? Have them maybe consider inflation, like have them really start to pull in some of these different concepts depending on their age and their abilities. And start to make the case to you as to why you should be paying more. Why, if it's their clothing allowance, what is it about their clothing that's starting to cost more money? Is it just that they're spending on brand names, or are prices legitimately going up? Can they comparison shop and say, look, across all stores, here's the level that things are now at? And I think that's such a great skill. And I just love the idea that gives, that it's not about power dynamics anymore. It's not about them having to come to you and ask and you just saying no. It's about engaging in that dialogue about more money. And if they decide not to do the presentation, that just signals to both you and to them that maybe they didn't really want that money. It was something that, sure, if I could ask for it and just get it, it would be great. But do I want it enough that I'll go through the work of justifying why I think it's actually needed? So I just love that approach.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that. Absolutely. Because, I mean, you might be really impressed with what they come back with, because it may be true. I mean, they may actually legitimately be needing more money, because some things, well, we know how things can go price wise up and down. And well, usually not down so much, but they definitely go up. But certain things, like you said, are they concentrating more on, brand name things that are going to be more expensive? Are they comparison shopping? Are they just, or is it truly things are, starting to rise to the point where, yes, they do actually need a little bit more for this. And yeah, I think they could absolutely surprise you, but then you will have that other side where they're like, I'll just ask and see what happens. And they're not going to take the time at that point. So I love kind of that business approach to it. And again, it's just another skill set that you're bringing in and teaching them. And so, yeah, I love that. That's fantastic. But, well, what are some other money kind of conversations or considerations that kind of come up as you're kind of moving into those teen years?
Oh, so a lot is changing as you get into the teen years. We could probably be hours just on all of the things, but a
Yes.
few to highlight maybe. So definitely first jobs. It may start with something small like babysitting or a paper route. We do still have those. We did actually have our boys doing some of that delivery things, and then they get into their what I'll call their real jobs, like the big after school jobs. So talking to them about how that money will be divided, because we want to make sure those habits we were building as kids, if we were building the habit of paying yourself first, of putting money aside into investing, that they don't see that as just something they were doing as kids, but that's a life skill that you continue with your first job so that it becomes ingrained, so that when they are out on their own, when they are young adults, when they get their first after school jobs, that it just becomes natural. So we want to make sure we're still encouraging them to divide their money. And we also want to make sure they have a little more skin in the game. So just like with the popcorn story that I've shared with your guests in the past, that when we went to the movie theater, our kids wanted, it wasn't popcorn, it was candy. When they wanted all kinds of candy, and then they realized how much more it cost at the movie theater, but they had never realized that before when they were spending my money. So just
Right.
like when they were spending my money differently than their own money, kids are going to be spending their own money that they're making on their job differently than they are going to be spending the money that you were providing to them. So you really want to make sure you're guiding them as they start getting their own money and making sure they're making smart decisions. You're going to start having discussions with them about education as well. So you want to start having those talks about how much does school cost? What are the implications of being living at home or away? What are the expectations of them to pitch in and be saving some of their money for education eventually? So starting to have those discussions, making it real, having them do a little bit of research, taking some jobs maybe that they're interested in, doing a little, again, whether it's a presentation or putting something together on how much does that particular job make, how much does it take to get that particular education, and really getting them to start thinking as adults and thinking of the future. And then the last, I touched on Uber a little bit earlier. I think technology is such an important topic to be talking to our kids about. So just like our kids were able to figure out Uber and get logged in, they're going to figure out how to do the online banking. They're going to be tapping their phones to pay for things in ways that I haven't mastered yet. So we need to be talking to them about security, about password security, about really taking care of our money and watching how these apps work. So that they're being smart about it. Like technology is really infiltrating all parts of our lives, and that includes the money part of our lives. So I think those technology discussions, we often don't talk about them when we're talking about money, but the two are really heavily linked. So big picture, I think just like we tell people to dress for the job they want, right? You dress, you present yourself not for the job you currently have, but for the job that you want. In the same way, we're having our teens start to act and pick up the skills that they will need as adults. It's about getting them ready for the next stage. So we're getting our kids ready for the teen years. We're getting our teens really ready for the adult years. So that's where we're starting to shift the focus at this stage.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm actually glad you mentioned the technology part because it is one, it's not going anywhere. I think it is safe to say it is here to stay and will only become more and more entrenched into our lives. I mean, we're practically there with COVID going to almost a cashless society because I mean, prior to this, I didn't carry a lot of cash anymore. It was, I mostly used credit cards and things like that. But yeah, with COVID, there were a lot of places, I know certainly here in the States, maybe up there in Canada, that stopped taking cash and were only use card because again, they could do it without having to touch it and things like that. And obviously with the pandemic, that's a little different scenario, but I think it probably just pushed up. We were already heading in that direction. And I think it just kind of pushed the timeline for us. And so, post COVID, as we're not out of it yet, but as we get further and further out of it, I don't think we're going back in a lot of those ways. A lot of the ways they do business now are going to change and they're going to stay changed. And, technology is here to stay. And remember, your kid's probably already going to be a little ahead of you no matter what on technology. So you
Yeah.
do have to try to be careful because remember, they don't understand those consequences that can come from that. And so it is important. And I actually have somebody that's going to come and speak to our group that's their focus is the technology side of it.
Oh, good.
So yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that because I think that is such a big part. And money is obviously something we need. I mean, we need to be very cautious that we don't get those passwords out there because, credit cards may be a little safer in that, that somebody can get your credit card number, but there are some protections built into that through the credit card company, though, don't test them. Just try to be safe with it. But with like debit cards in your bank account, if somebody hacks into those, it's a lot more difficult because the problem is that money is already gone. It is, once it is out of your account, it is gone. And many times you cannot get that back. It does not matter. And so, yeah, you've got to be cautious of those things like your passwords and stuff and make sure you're not handing it out to somebody or, giving them your PIN number for your ATM card or something. So, but again, kids don't understand those because they just don't have the life experience yet. It's not that they're, not smart or something like that. They just don't. to them, you know, the world is this, it's nice to be a little bit innocent, but the problem is if you stay that way, you may get taken advantage of. So there's a balance of having to, you know, we want to protect them as long as we can, but we do also have to show them that there is a side of this world that is not, you know, as nice, and that they do need to protect themselves. So
no, absolutely. And it can be so easy to think, oh, it's just my friend I'm going to share with. And maybe even there's a little bit of, I don't want to, I hope not, but maybe a bit of peer pressure, like where somebody says, come on, just give me your pin. I'll give you mine. And it can start out so easily.
yes.
And so it needs to be something that isn't a judgment call, where it's just automatic. Passwords don't go to anyone else. No questions, no exceptions.
Exactly. No, that's great. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for coming and chatting to us today about moving into those teen years, because there is a big shift in there, and it's one that definitely needs to be addressed. And giving them more responsibility is just part of the game. And you know, they learn so much during those years. It's actually frightening if you really sit and think about how much they're learning. But yeah, we can help that process so much by giving those, you know, little pieces at a time and letting them master that, and then give them the next one and the next one and the next one. And you know, by the time they're getting out into that real world, you know, that they're so much more prepared for things. You know, there's always going to be things that come and hit you. It's life, it happens. And but having this skill set built up, you know, in their childhood gives them just some remarkable tools to be able to hit those things when they do come in their adult years. So
Absolutely.
well,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was going to say thank you, but I did want you, we didn't do it at the top. So, but would you tell us a little bit more about the 4-Pocket allowance system, and where people can find you on the internet?
Absolutely. So we do for anyone, not so much for the teen years. I'll be honest, we're talking today about teen years, but if you have kids at home and you're looking for a way to start to get them to divide their money and to manage money, we have I'm awful. I don't have it sitting beside me. I usually do. We do have a money management system. So it's a book, fits on the bookshelf, and inside there's pockets to put saving, spending, giving, and investing money. We think all four are so important. Kim, you and I took some time and we went back through all four of those pockets and the importance for them. So they're available on our website at pocketallowance.com. And then also feel free to check us out over on, we're on Instagram and Facebook. We're always talking about something about kids and money. And that's at the Money Mindset Mom. So all one word, no spaces, of course, no spaces, no dots, no dashes, just the Money Mindset Mom. So I'd love to see people over there as well.
Well, that's great. Well, I know you share some great information out there, and so definitely go check those out. She's got something called Money Mail that's really great. So yeah, sign up for those, and she gives some great tips and things like that every month. So yeah, follow her and get that information. And thank you again for joining us. You always have such great information on kids and allowance and how to make that work, and because it's not as easy as it may sound. And particularly if you're really wanting to instill those that money mindset, and how to save and spend and invest, and just the giving part as well. So thank you so much for joining us. I know we're going to have you back. You sent me some topics that you had in mind, and I loved every one of them. So we will definitely have you back.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to be here, Kim. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, thank you. And we will see you again here real soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.